Well, here we are. It's week 10, the Mike and Rico show. Going to review some college football action today. A wild day. Wild day. We had a lot going on. A lot of teams were actually stepping up in conference play and playing some big-time games. There's really a balanced breakfast from 12 o'clock on. I mean, your early window, your mid window, and your night window all had big-time games. It was a great day. Definitely a great day if you're a Seminole fan because you win and your two rivals lose. So the state of Florida is kind of in flux right now. Noles look like they've got some momentum going, got a chance to have a pretty special season. We have a lot to go over. Obviously, an elephant in the room, sign gate at Michigan. We need to get into that. That's going to be it's really been the headlines all week. What's going to happen with the Big Ten? NCAA is investigating University of Michigan for some sign stealing. Connor Stalions has been removed from the program. Some say he resigned. Some say he fired. But now it's really kind of a pissing match between University President Santaono and the Big Ten and the coaches that are frankly whining and crying, and they want Michigan to be barred from participating going forward. So that's a big one. We're going to have to get into that. What are your thoughts? I mean, we're knee deep in this now. We've got a field of playoff contenders kind of set. We've got some favorites maybe set. And they're kind of falling into the storyline because Michigan's one of them, and we got to see what they're going to try to do to them.
Yeah, they called it Statement Week Saturday. It was more like, to me, like Survival Week Saturday with a lot of these teams. I think no matter who your top team is, if you're one of those top teams that are battling for the playoff, I think you weren't happy in regards of your game. But the teams that we felt good, throughout the year. They responded in a big way, some bigger than others, and then they just got the job done. And certainly it sets up for a crazy finish. And the teams that we've talked about, like the Florida States, the Georgia, the Michigan, they're all right there. Ohio State found a way to get it going the second half. So all these teams are trickling their way, and they did enough to survive on this weekend. And then now it sets up some massive games, going into next weekend, the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, huge games going. So without any further ado, we're going to hop right into it and get into the Buckeyes game here. This was one that was really a dogfight, and Ohio State did kind of what they do, and they blow it open late. Here we're starting in the first quarter here. Good ball there. McCord has kind of matured as a passer as the season has gone on. He's still not elite what they used to, but he is making some plays. Rutgers pulling out the punt Ruski on 4th and 1, and this looks like this might go almost all the way to the house.
Yeah, apparently
this is where
14 forgot how to block. Apparently,
I feel like this killed Rutgers all day long, settling for field goals when they should have got touchdowns. If you're going to beat Ohio State, you got to put the ball in the end zone. They were unable to do it early.
Yeah, and then you also got to know when. Okay, it's a field goal game, it's a low-scoring game. You got to know when to kick field goals and just get points and keep matriculating points in there. Keep the pressure on Ohio State, and I think a lot of teams, fall into that trap where they feel like they have to get a touchdown, and when you try to get a touchdown, bad stuff happens. We haven't seen that yet, but we will later. And you got to just keep whatever you got to do to keep the momentum. You got to keep it going. And unfortunately for Rutgers, they had a play that just really shifted the whole game once they did that play. And I think this is it right here. Just tried to be tricky, and it's just like you can't do those plays when you're already in field goal range. Just run stuff that's safe, that you're careful with, and then end up being a 92-yard pick six. And that just really, from that point, the game was turned.
Yeah, so I mean, so far what I'm looking at here, they had 3 chip shot 20-yard field goals, which means they bogged down inside the 10-yard 3 times, and then they throw a pick 6, from the 15-yard line. I mean, that's Ohio State got outplayed for the majority of this game, but credit to them, their red zone defense is pretty stiff, and they made some plays. I think Rutgers comes back here, good ball. They ruled this a touchdown. That was kind of a simultaneous catch. So Rutgers was back into a position to be, one score away, and
Hmm.
Ohio State bows up again. They go to my man Travion Henderson, and he's
Yep.
pretty dang special.
He is. He's
Here
one
he
of their best.
is.
He's one of the best players on their team. Obviously, I think Marvin Harrison's the best, but as far as the most impactful, I think Travion, when he's healthy, they look like a different team because they don't have to rely on just forcing feeding the ball to Marvin.
Yeah,
And that's the thing when Ohio State, when you play them,
here's
you
your
got to keep.
guy.
Yep, Marvin's just he's just a freakazoid avatar,
Yeah,
whatever you want to call it.
that's he. I mean, regardless of how you feel about Ohio
Yeah,
State, he is absolutely outstanding. Marvin
yeah,
Harrison's outstanding, and Travion Henderson, I think, is outstanding too. Here he is again. I mean, look
yeah,
at this kid. Look
yeah.
at his speed.
And that's
I
the
mean, this
thing when
this
you
this guy's the real deal.
when you play Ohio State, you have to consistently keep the pressure on them where they feel like they have to do more than what they're doing. And once they got that pick six, it seemed they were behind the eight ball, and then Ohio State could kind of relax and just run their stuff. And that I think that's what we saw in that game where they just finished it off.
Yeah, I think Buckeyes end up getting that win. Uh, what was the final score there? It looks like they won by.
It was like was it like 45-26 or something like that or something?
No, it wasn't quite that bad. Gosh, I just lost track of it.
I
They
don't
ended up
know.
winning by about 3 scores
Okay.
and kind of going away. But that game was a dogfight. It was a one-score game in the fourth quarter. But Ohio State has this knack. They've been in dogfights for the last, 5-6 weeks. But to their credit, they have a knack for finishing ball games, much like the next team we're going to watch in
Gino
Georgia.
says 35-16, so there you go. 35-16.
35-16.
That's what Gino says.
35-16.
Oh,
Gino, what is
whoa,
up?
What's up?
oh,
Gino, this is a very special show here. We've got a special guest, United States Marine Corps active duty service member, Semper Fi brother. He's joining us. We just got done covering the Ohio State Buckeyes. We were talking about Travion Henderson. We were talking about Marvin Harrison, about how special those two are and how tough the Buckeyes are. They don't really wow you. I don't think they're the number one team in the country, but they seem to get it done in the fourth quarter every week.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I don't think they're the number one team in the country either, but they're definitely not a team you can leave out in the playoff as of now. Up until Michigan goes in and bumps them. So
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. So the next team we got is probably the number one team in the country, if we're being fair, and it's going to be the Georgia Bulldogs. They had a big game today against Missouri. We
right.
highlighted this one, and this one did not disappoint. This was
No.
a very good ball game, and Missouri came to play. And
Yep.
you'll see the highlights. We'll roll it here.
Yeah, Missouri was really they weren't like the other teams that get there where Georgia jumps on them and then
Boom.
they kind of fall apart. Like Missouri just stuck with them the whole way. Give Georgia credit. Late in the game, they just made some clutch plays that kind of put it away. But man, Missouri is good. Like that's a really good team. They're going to go to a good bowl and they're going to play somebody really whoever they play. I mean, you got your hands full because that team's good. Love their
Yeah, Missouri
quarterback.
comes out there and strikes early. Georgia gets a field goal back, and then they run this look like a little tunnel screen there. So
Yep.
they go up 10-7, but they were never wow, he almost jumped that. Man, he
Hmm.
almost jumped that, took that to the Kazarin. But Georgia was not really able to shake Missouri. Missouri ended up coming back here 13-10, but then Georgia answers right back. It was
Yep.
just a back and forth ball game that really stretched deep into the second half. I mean, almost 6-minute mark, I think, when the big play happens. Great blocking right there.
Yeah, they
Look
do
at the
really good.
receiver.
They do a really good job of their seal blocking and the receiver blocking downfield. Always, they're just really good at that play. That's kind of one of their bread and butters. And then here's a great play by Carson back to
Yep, McConkey.
McConkey, who's just
Lad.
he's just really good. And this is
Yeah,
kind of
he's their
where
guy.
you felt like it was starting to slip away.
Yeah, that's great execution. Now, mind you, this team is without Brock Bowers, number one tight end in the country.
Yep.
As Gino made us all agree a couple of weeks ago. There is no equal. There's no number two. It's all about Brock. And so they're doing this without their best guy on offense. It's pretty impressive. I think Beck has gotten a little bit better as well. Kind of like Kyle McCord.
Yeah.
He has kind of graduated Still not what I would say necessarily elite, but given this much talent that's surrounding him, it's definitely serviceable.
Yeah, and here's the part I was talking about. Missouri just won't go away. Get a touchdown from Schrader, go for a 2-point conversion. They get it. Great
Yep.
pass, great
Boom.
location, and
Here it is.
they got a chance to win the game here, and then this is just a massive mistake by the quarterback.
I don't understand where he's throwing the ball. I mean, that's a
He got it.
lineman number 74.
Well, he got his arm hit right when he was throwing, and it just went
Okay,
right to the guy.
well,
If they slow it down, they'll show it to you. But
Yeah, well,
you
here
can
it
see
is.
You could see it right here where he hits his arm, and then it just goes right to the guy.
Well, it wasn't going anywhere anyway, and this guy got blasted there. It's probably a cheap shot. It probably should have been called, but Georgia.
Yeah,
Georgia
and
absorbed it.
that was pretty much it right there with that field goal. I mean, that made it a basically a 2-score game. So after that, it was kind of like they were fighting it. But Missouri was game, but they just that fourth quarter they just could not make enough plays.
Yeah, going downfield, trying to make something happen late game. Georgia is very tough between the hedges. They don't leave there often, and it's very tough to beat them there. They make plays like this down the stretch. Great safety play here. Tracking the ball. It's nice to see. Double caught it. May not have caught that inbounds, but they ruled it a pick. So that's all that matters.
Fuller's a dog, man. He's a heck of a safety.
Yeah, that's good play.
Yeah, Georgia.
Kids
Georgia's
watching
gonna be
too.
tough.
Just get your for the kids that are watching that. They're like get his knees down like that. I mean, that's you track the ball, but you also want to get your knees down so you can secure it so the ball doesn't slip underneath your body. And that's they're really good at that. Georgia's a great team.
Yeah, Georgia just doesn't. It's crazy because this does not feel like we said this with Bama. Like Bama doesn't feel like the Bama 5 years ago here, where they were just this insurmountable force that was just gonna just wreck you, right? But they're really good. It's really tough to beat them. I mean,
they are.
Shout out to Texas for going in there and going into Tuscaloosa, getting the win earlier. Georgia is not the Georgia of last year or the year before. They're not. They're not that insurmountable force, but they're really damn good, and they're really difficult to beat.
Yeah, and it don't get any easier. They have to play Ole Miss next weekend, so that's going to be another Donnybrook. Penn State plays Michigan, so we're going to get to these top ones that really can shake things up. But it doesn't. Like I told my brother called me about the Florida State game. Like the pressure does not get easier when you play. When you're 8-0 and 9-0. It doesn't matter who you're playing. The pressure only gets higher every game you play. It doesn't matter what the opponent is.
Nope, it doesn't. Georgia just feels like a team that's going to be there. Gino, do you have any thoughts on Georgia? How do you feel about them as far as three-peating, which is pretty much unheard of?
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, this year there isn't a whole lot of top-tier teams that have this, like, quote-unquote, like, elite level quarterback play. You know what I mean? Like you have some really good ones there. You have your Bo Nix playing well at Oregon. You got your Michael Penix playing well at Washington. Like Caleb Williams and USC are kind of out of the fight. So like the most important position on the field right now for the top 5, 6, 7 teams in college football don't really have like an elite level quarterback. So I think that kind of ties into the teams overall playing in like more of like a war of attrition, right? So you're going to see who has the most depth, who has the best coaching, who has the best schematics. You know what I mean? To kind of put their best positional players in space, let their playmakers go out and make plays and kind of just go from there. I mean, out of the top 5 or 6, 7 teams, I mean, the 3 best quarterbacks are likely the back 4 teams. Like number 4, you got Florida State and Jordan Travis. You got Michael Penix and Bo Nix at, coming in at 5 and 6. And, the top 3 teams around, you don't really have like an elite level quarterback like you have in recent past.
Yeah, the quarterback play with guys graduating, obviously Stetson going off to the NFL, kind of. It's just so tough to replace that position, and teams are really struggling. They're really having a hard time replacing that. And I feel like it's so wide open. I mean, the best quarterback play is probably out in the Pac-12, but then there's no defense out there, so it's hard to kind of gauge it. How are those quarterbacks going to do? We've seen Penix look great today. Penix has looked really, really, average for about 3 weeks in a row. I mean, there was one game he didn't even throw for a touchdown. I mean, if the refs, don't kind of take control of that defensive backfield, I don't know if Washington wins that game against who was it? Arizona State?
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
mean he's been up and down, and even Caleb's been up and down. A few weeks where he just wasn't good. Um, Obviously we don't need to talk about their defense because they don't even play it. So I mean, there's no
yeah,
sense
they
in
don't even
talking about the
try.
defense
They don't
like
even
that.
try.
I mean, but they've all had their struggles. I think if you look at all these quarterbacks, to Gino's point, like they've had games where they just weren't on. But when you get in the big moments, like the Bo Nixes and the Michael Penix and the Jordan Travises, when they play somebody good, they turn it up. They answer.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks that were on and off, we'll go to the Michigan game here.
Go
Now,
figure.
obviously, there's a lot going on with Michigan right now. We're going to get into that because I've got some pretty interesting opinions on some of that stuff. JJ
Yep.
was cooking early.
Yeah, he
Michigan
was.
came out. He came out hot. Michigan looked very, very good in the first quarter. They looked like number one, number two team in the country. First quarter, Blake Corum gets a touchdown. I think he's 11 behind Anthony Thomas for the all-time lead here. He ended up getting 3 today, so I think he's 8 back. Get another drive here off of an interception by Will
Nice,
Johnson.
nice
Right
dive.
back in the end zone. Reading some of the post-game stuff, Michigan was running different things than they've normally run, kind of in preparation for Penn State.
Yeah,
So maybe one of the reasons why the offense
right.
didn't look as great through 4 quarters. Here's a
Yeah,
Will Johnson pick.
and I think we forget about that when the teams that you're gonna play, whether it's a rivalry game or a big top 10 matchup.
Yeah.
Sometimes we forget these teams are going to play, and we want them to look so perfect every week. And the top teams, a lot of the top teams didn't. So it happens, but Michigan was sloppy, but at the same time, they did what they needed to do and eventually put it away.
Yep, here's a terrible defensive back play by 13. I don't know what in the world he was doing there. I think that's the transfer Wallace from Massachusetts, but that was just a really bad play. End up getting another field goal here, so it's 20-0. We're midway through the second here. Game's firmly in control, and
Yeah,
this is where it kind of bogged down for me. This is where, if I got to be critical, I kind of was of the opinion that Michigan was maybe the best team in the country. And I know they had a really rocky week, especially feel bad for the kids because they're kind of suffering for the decisions of guys on the staff and whoever knew and who didn't
hmm
know. But they really looked distracted
yeah,
going from this point forward until right about here. This is the freshman Samaj Morgan on the corner.
nice.
Uh, nice end around. And it was interesting. They really couldn't run the ball in between the tackles, so they had to get kind of creative. A little bit of a concern going into Penn State next week.
Yeah, I mean, there was obviously some pressing stuff that wasn't working, and they were trying different things. And obviously, these kids are feeling immense pressure of the week they had to deal with. I mean, that's a lot of stuff on college kids. I don't care who you are,
Yeah.
but like I said, they when they need to put it together and finish it off, that's what they usually do, and they did it again. They put you away. I mean, we're bitching about a game that's 41-13. So I mean, it tells you kind of what the standards are with Michigan every week or what we expect. But I think I think
Yeah,
it's under.
here's the 13 on 4th and 3 here. You hate this. You
Yeah.
hate giving this up, but I mean, it's a wart on the final score, so it messes with your cosmetics. But it just is what it is. Purdue played hard.
Yeah.
They played, in my opinion, maybe a little overly physical
Yeah.
/ dirty on
Yeah.
this game,
It was some
but
unnecessary stuff.
yeah, so here's the deal. So the NCAA has a rule about in-person scouting. Okay, you cannot in-person scout ahead of time, okay, or ahead of a future opponent unless you're at the venue and
Hmm.
watching the actual sport that you're going to play them in. So
Right.
if I'm a staff member for the University of Michigan, and this is, I mean, it's the elephant in the room. It's what everybody's talking about. I mean, ESPN nonstop coverage. If I want to scout Penn State, I can go to a Penn State game weeks before I actually play Penn State at
Right.
their stadium. Has to be in the venue and at the game. You're allowed to do that. A staffer, a
Right.
coach, you're allowed to do that.
Yep.
What you're not allowed to do, because the NCAA deems that it would be too expensive for everybody to do it, what you're not allowed to do is take your camera and film from the sideline. Now, here's the
That's
caveat
true.
to that. Okay, here's the caveat to that. The Big Ten mandates that 3 angles of game film be provided to each team
Hmm.
every week. Okay, so if I come there and I'm the guy and I do something illegal and I scout and I get the film, I'm maybe getting that film that I can use a day, maybe two earlier. That's technically the advantage as I see it.
Right.
Okay, the reason why the rule's in place and it was actually challenged and they were going to take the rule away because they deem in their language that it does not create a competitive advantage. That's the NCAA's verbiage. It does not create a competitive advantage. It's not a big deal rule, but it is a rule. You can't take your phone and go there and record. You're not allowed to do that. You can go there with your eyes, but you can't go there with a phone.
Right.
As long as you're at the venue and you're watching the sport that you're going to play at that venue, you're allowed to do it. So that comes in Connor Stallions. What did he do? Okay, well, they don't have him on video doing this. They don't have that. What they have is him purchasing tickets and then people going there off the tickets that he purchased. And the assumption is that those people are recording for him. But the problem is the NCAA rule doesn't say that a friend of a staff member can't record physically at the game. It doesn't say that. So there's really no rule that's violated. Okay, that's the first thing. What also came out last week was a picture and some stills that looked like a Michigan staffer, Connor Stallions, on the CMU sideline in CMU gear. That, I don't know, that's some weirdo like black ops crap. I can't imagine that anybody would send a coach to go dress like a member of the other staff and then Central Michigan has no idea who he is and you're scouting Michigan State who's horrible. But this is what's being alleged. And the last part before we dive into discussion is being in law enforcement and dealing with court cases, federal ones, there's a thing called the fruit of the poisonous tree. So if I want to get Gino in trouble and I hack into his phone and I find some incriminating evidence and I didn't have a warrant to get into his phone, I didn't have any legal means to get in his phone.
Yep.
I'm not going to be able to charge him, indict him, and get him sentenced for whatever I find in his phone. It doesn't work like that. And what's being alleged is that the University of Ohio State hired two firms, one being owned and operated by Ryan Day's brother, that's what's being alleged, and the other being a close associate of one of Ryan Day's brothers. And those two private investigation firms hacked Michigan servers to get information that they used as evidence to present to the NCAA and to present more of it to the Big Ten. The NCAA has not passed notice of allegations, which would kick into a 90-day window. That has not happened. And so they're slow playing it. They're absorbing all this information. So what has happened is Ohio State has rallied the rest of the Big Ten coaches. They've rallied the ADs, and they're trying to pressure Petit, the new Big Ten commissioner, to come down hard on Michigan and suspend Harbaugh and maybe prevent them from going to the Big Ten championship. Conveniently, when Michigan has a team that Ohio State probably can't beat for a third year in a row. And the precedent that this sets for when you can't beat your rival, that you can hire private investigation firms related to you to dig up dirt on them to prevent them from competing and having to face them or at least getting their coach fired. That's a precedent that has no place in sports, in my opinion. That's just crazy. Like we've gone completely off the deep end here with this.
Yeah, I mean, there's three things for me with this. One, you have the separate issue with Ohio State, in my opinion. That's a separate thing that you're going to have to investigate yourself to find out what laws they were broken. There could be felonies involved in there. You have to do that. Secondly, the other second thing is I see a lot of perception in this instead of actual facts. So is the perception is they're pushing people to penalize Michigan on the perception that they broke the rules, but you have to break the rules. So there needs to be it needs to be consistency of what the facts state, and then you can go from there. This is going to only going to be keep going ongoing, and that's the problem with this. I think the Michigan president sent a letter today stating that very fact that hey, we recognize this is serious. We recognize all these things, but there has to be due process to everyone involved. Like if you go to court and I'm the plaintiff and you're the defendant has a chance to defend himself. The plaintiff is certainly presenting the case, but there can't be one side where it's a one side justice system. There's got to be something where each side gets to present themselves. And if you're If
Right.
you're going to deem Michigan guilty, you have to actually have some facts. Like so far, the stuff you mentioned, like there's nothing, no rule against somebody scouting somebody, and unless you have proof of him videoing it himself.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do. It's not in the rule book. So you have to go by what the facts are. Then it's like, so are you going to go by the facts or are you going to go by the perception? I think, but there's a lot of pushing on both of those sides. So, and I think the Ohio State thing that you just revealed is stuff that's a separate investigation that they're going to have to do. And then that's why I
Hmm.
say be careful who you investigate, because they're going to investigate you. If you're not squeaky clean, you probably don't want to run your mouth and say stuff. So there's going to be there's three different things that are going on in this case.
Yeah, so apparently what the Big Ten had a meeting. I mean, this has been like a big ordeal. The Big Ten commissioner Petit, he just newly hired, he came to Ann Arbor and he met with Santa Ono. The problem that Michigan has right now is they have an athletic director in Ward Manuel who is at odds with Jim Harbaugh for whatever reason. I guess he
Yep.
doesn't like winning. And the all oars being in the water, which is what you need in a situation like that, is not necessarily the case. Now, Santa Ono's the new university president. He's all on board. He's backing Jim Harbaugh 100%. They're working on an extension right now. But the athletic director and individual named Singleton, who happens to be on the infractions committee, who's also a Michigan alumnus, they don't really like Harbaugh for whatever reason. He's quirky and he's weird, and they don't like him. And so this is causing a bit of an issue. So there's a lot of rumors swirling. There was a big meeting on Friday. It lasted like 6 hours. Your good friend Chris Ballas was there.
Yep, my dude.
Well, not at the meeting, but he was doing the best he could to cover it.
He's awesome.
And basically, long story short, for those that don't know, the Big Ten, Petit came in there after having a 90-minute phone call with the head coaches and the athletic directors on Thursday regarding Michigan. Emotional, coaches crying, talking about the crazy advantage. Mind you, the NCAA's verbiage on this rule, it's only a rule because it would be too expensive if all these staffs had people out there filming. It literally said this does not create a competitive advantage. That's the NCAA's rule. That's what they said. That's their verbiage. These coaches and these ADs got on the phone and cried and whined and said that they have no chance to beat Michigan because Michigan's been in-person scouting. They said that their players were being put in peril and harmed. The Michigan State athletic director didn't even want to play the game against Michigan because he said his players would be endangered. These are the type of terminologies that we're using here in this woke world that we're in, where you can just basically lump something out there and hope it sticks, and then you can just use the court of public opinion. That's exactly what's happening here. They had a 90-minute phone call on Thursday where they're just basically asking the Big Ten to smash Michigan before the NCAA has even given notice of allegations, which is unprecedented and crazy. And it's followed up on Friday. They had a 6-hour meeting with Petit, who came in and basically threw some weight around and threatened Michigan. What happened was Santa Ono came back. He released a letter on Thursday and he backed it up. And he said, hey, here's the deal. We've got information that this came from Ohio State, that they used private investigator firms, and that they committed felonies by breaching our computer systems to get this information that they're presenting to you as evidence. That's a problem. So we want our due process here. And Santa Ono stepped up to him. And so now it's going to be a pissing match. What I've heard is the Big Ten wants to try to issue a minimum 2-game suspension for Jim Harbaugh. Because again, they've got the hard on for Harbaugh. They don't even want to hurt Michigan. They say they don't want to hurt the student athletes, but they want to get Harbaugh. So they want to suspend him for 2 games. That's what they're shooting for. And Santa Ono is basically stonewall him. So I don't know where this goes this week.
Yeah,
I don't know where it goes.
I think a big part of this that we haven't talked about is Jim Harbaugh coming forward and just saying, this is what happened, and talking to these people and talking to the NCAA. And I think if he did that, this thing might speed up. But
he has. He has released several statements. He said he never at any point knowingly violated any rules. Connor Stallions has released a statement saying that no coaches knew about what he was doing, that he acted on his own accord, and that Harbaugh and none of these coaches put him up to it. He's already released official statements. So,
I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe he can be. I don't know if there's more stuff he can elaborate on. I don't know. If there isn't, then it's just going to be a pissing match back and forth of whatever. Eventually, when in these situations we see a compromise, from my experience in it, So
Yeah.
we'll see what goes on from here.
Well, regardless, it's an absolute mess. And
Yep.
I'm going to cut in a screen here so you guys can kind of see what we're talking about here. And it's pretty weird. I mean, we just look at this here. We've got, Connor Stallions here seemingly in Central Michigan gear. Now, here's the issue. I mean, we've both had the privilege of being on some sidelines and doing that's a high security issue
Yeah.
because you're around 100 and something student athletes,
Yep.
coaches, family, all kinds of stuff. This opens up a whole Pandora's box. If this is Connor Stallions, if that is in fact him, which maybe it may be. If that's him, how the hell is he there? And how the hell does Central Michigan not know?
And even more so, how did Michigan State not know? That's your stadium. Like, they're in your stadium.
Huge
So
point.
I mean, both sides on that. And I can tell you right now, I know how access works. It is extremely hard to get on the sidelines. There's a process and a protocol that you go through, and it's almost impossible not to know who's on your sideline. Like, you might not know everybody that you give passes to, but guys that are on your sideline, because that affects your student athletes that are playing in the game. They could be on the sideline and some guy stab them in the back or something. Like, you need to know
Yeah.
there's a process and protocol, that stuff. So yeah, that's very, very unusual. And to me, CMU and Michigan State should have to answer for that. I mean, that's some serious problems. Like, that should not happen.
Yeah, I agree. It's super weird. I don't want to come across as like, oh, what they did. If it's a rule and it's a violation, if the NCAA investigation shows that Harbaugh is lying to the NCAA and that
Right.
he put this guy up to it, then you are looking at vacated wins. You are looking at a suspension. You are looking at a lot of things. I just don't think that that's going to be the case. I think what you have is a guy who's a staffer on a high-level staff, a national championship hopeful staff, and he wants to show out. He's told to go scout. You are allowed to in-person scout. So he finds a way to skirt the rules. So he knows he can't sit there and film from the 50-yard line, but he can send his buddy to go do it, or he can have somebody else go do it. So he's finding ways to skirt the rules. Some schools just pay you under the table, right?
Yeah,
Some schools give you urine vials to do your drug tests, right? We want to act like we want to have a real conversation about how college football works. I don't think we really want to do that because everybody will probably be taking their favorite team's ball cap off, right?
Yeah.
But
and here's the thing too, Rico. Like, anybody that goes to your games, whether you're a Miami fan, you're a Florida State fan, you're Michigan, whoever, any fan could go to the game and video and then send
anybody.
it to a coach. Like, that's why this is so stupid. It's not in the rule book, so anybody could do that. Literally, and I've heard people do that. I'm not going to elaborate on it, but I've heard people do that. Now the coaches blow it off, and most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, they just throw it away and whatever. But anybody can do it, So him having somebody that's friend that sends it, I mean, anybody could do that. So if it's not your rule book, yeah, like I agree with Rico. Like, yeah, if he's guilty of stuff, then yeah, there's going to be sanctions, there are going to be suspensions, there are going to be firings, some more firings and stuff like that. But to me, you have to prove some facts. I mean, you have to have something factual wise to back it up. Apparently, they have overwhelming evidence or whatever. That's what they say. But okay,
where is it? Can I get it from somebody besides Pete Thamel? On like some podcast with shirtless Pat McAfee, who are both in the pocket for Ryan Day and like Buckeye fan. Like, what are we talking about here? How come this information, this evidence is coming from these secret firms? We don't even know where this came from. And and people are like, oh, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does matter. When you're trying to incriminate, when you're trying to bury a football program for what Finebaum said, the biggest scandal in college football history, you asshat, you better have a good grounds for where the information came from, and it at least better be legal. You better not have committed a felony to obtain it, or it's not going to stick.
Yeah, that's why we're supposed to have the NCAA. They're supposed to investigate. That's what they do. Schools don't investigate. And I mentioned Ohio State briefly. It's like, if there's some seriousness of factual stuff that they find out that Ryan Day is somehow connected to this, whether it's his relative or somebody, he's gone.
He's
He's
gone out of
gone.
there.
Like
You
you
can't
can't
you can't beat him on the field. And here's what I've said to several Big Ten fans. It's just funny to me because it feels like when Ohio State has got tattoos going, got guys punching girls on video camera, they're covering it up, and we can delve into pain. I guess we've got a good friend of ours who is a big fan of Miami. I guess all those 5-star receivers just bypass Miami, Gainesville, Tallahassee, Georgia, the entire SEC, and just go to cold, gray-ass, stanky-ass Ohio to go play their football legitimately, right? They're just legit going up there, right? Nothing to see here. Nothing's going on under the table, right? They just bypass everywhere they're from, where their family can come watch them every week, to go play. All of them go play for Ohio State, just legitly, right? Get out of here. Like, let's stop it. Like, we do not want to have a real conversation about what happens in the closets and in the hallways of college football. And right now you have a rival in Ohio State and Coach Day with ties to private investigation firms that are investigating Michigan. Conflict of interest. Holy crap. I mean, that precedent that's set is absolutely ridiculous. And the slow drip media, connection that they have with ESPN, who, it needs to be said, no longer has the TV rights for Michigan. It all goes to Fox Sports, right? And the Big Ten. So they're monetarily influenced to bury Michigan. Why? Because they want to highlight the teams that they can cover. They don't cover Michigan. So, of course, ESPN's got it on the ticker. It's the first story every time. Every little slow drip leak.
Yeah, and it's got to be like I'll go back to this as I close on it. Like there has to be factual, whether it's the Ohio State stuff or it's the stuff you're accusing Michigan of. There has to be penalties. You have to release stuff of factual information of penalties, and you also have to serve them. If you're gonna do something, then serve them. If you're not, forget this crap. Move on. Play football.
Yeah. It just feels like here we go with Ryan Day and the Ohio State Buckeyes. They are not going to be favored when they come to Ann Arbor. They're probably not going to win for the third year in a row. And so you can't beat them on the field. So let's hire private eyes to dig up dirt on them to try to bring them down that way. That's a low for Ohio State, honestly. If that's true, and it's being reported that's where it came from.
Yeah, if it's true.
That's an all-time low. Ohio State has been dominant for years. To have to stoop to that, to try to bring your rival down, when you've been paying for players, when you've been covering up all kind of crap for years, and you want to bring your rival down because they finally decided to not be the lone bar of soap in a sewer, really? Give me a break. Let's go on to another game.
So let Gino chime in if he wants to chime in on that subject.
No, I mean I'm completely concurring with you guys are saying, and I don't know the audience too well who watches the show, or what TV rating you guys keep this at, but it almost kind of sounds like this witch hunt is also going on in other areas in the country right now when you talk about left hand versus right hand. You kind of
100%. This is the way it works now. I mean, if you control the media outlet, you could throw whatever out there, and if you have the control, you know what I mean? If you have that coalition of information, you just put it out there and beat everybody over the head. So people who don't delve into it will be like, "Wow, Michigan's just this crazy cheating universe." Is it the signs? I mean, Michigan's up 41-6 over Purdue. They just thumped Purdue in the Big Ten championship game. They're beating them 41-6. Like, is it the signs? Really?
Yeah, my thing is just, are you doing things within the law? You're doing stuff that, whether it's Ohio State, Michigan, Harbaugh, whatever, are you doing stuff within what your rules are? If Ohio State's doing this stuff, then absolutely you're not. You're going way beyond that. But if Harbaugh's guilty, then show us why he's guilty. That's all we're saying. Give us facts of what he's doing. There's just a lot of speculation, and the thing is, they don't want to share. This is what it feels like to me. They don't want to share because then they have to indicate where the information came from. And so there's a lot of questions that we still have to figure out. But to me, it's like everyone just needs to make sure you're following the guidelines of what the rules state.
Yeah, what a mess. I feel like they're going to push for a suspension this week. I think they may end up getting a 2-game suspension because they want to harm Michigan. Obviously, sending Michigan to Happy Valley with no Harbaugh puts them at a pretty grave disadvantage and creates a mired situation where Penn State could end up in a 3-way tie. and then voters could kind of determine who goes. So I feel like that's going to come. We'll see if Santaono can thwart those plans. But what a mess!
Yeah, it is.
What an absolute ridiculous mess.
It is. Let's get the football. Let's see some football.
That's some mess. So, all right, here we go. We've got the Noles taking on a 2-6 Pittsburgh team. And Mike, this game was not fun until about midway through the third quarter.
It was not. It was probably a very stressful game to watch. Very sloppy. Obviously, for people that didn't tune in, no Keon Coleman, no Johnny Wilson, no Hakeem Williams, no pretty much any guy that's been playing for FSU. In fact, their leading guy that was coming in this game was Ja'Kai Douglas, and Ja'Kai only caught his first catch last week against Wake. So they were very thin on experience of guys that have played this year. So obviously the Toa Philly fumble kind of set the tone of what we were going to watch throughout the day. And a great play here with Rodney Hill, but man, it was a really big struggle in that first half. They just I felt like not just the players were pressing, I felt like the coaches were pressing of some of the stuff they were calling. Like,
Mike, what do we do? What do we do when we're on the road on fourth down?
They always take the points. Especially when you're struggling.
What are you doing?
You got to get points.
That's a great pass right there.
Yeah,
it was just a struggle. It was just a struggle early. The Noles couldn't get any footing. I thought Norvell was really pressing, and this was kind of a big test for Florida State, because this is a game they should have won comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we kind of think Florida State is a little bit deeper than Florida State actually is.
Yeah,
Florida State is not this team that's just got 6 and 7 great wide receivers. They've got 2 or 3 really good ones.
Yeah, I think they're deep, but they're not experienced deep. They're good players. They're really good players, but they're not.
Look at this.
Deep. Now, this play is incredible by Fentrell Cypress. This is why they teach this every day. Grab them, rip the shoulder, pull the ball out. And he did exactly what they practice on that ground. Rico's done that drill 100 times.
That was a huge play right there. Pitt was not able to get anything going. They hit a bomb. Should have been 7-0. It got ruled a touchback. We get the ball right back to our offense. Thank God Coach Fuller came to coach, because our offense was just ass water for the first half.
It was a struggle. And credit to the FSU defense. They played really well in that first half, outside of those 2 big plays that they stripped at the goal line, and then 2 they scored on later. The defense for Adam Fuller was great in the first half, and they were even better in the second half.
That's great pocket work right there. Another great catch. So once he got the bomb, he got a little comfortable here, and he started hitting some throws downfield. This is very disappointing. If I were to knock Florida State, I have to say I do not think the secondary is great, or it's definitely not elite, and I don't think it's great. I think we've got some serviceable guys. Akeem Dent, I think, has played really well, but we don't have a bunch of ball hawks and a bunch of Sunday guys in that secondary, if I'm being honest.
They have some solid players. They don't have an elite guy that just takes over a game, but they do have solid players. Bernardo Green's been really good this year. Azari Thomas will be really good, but these guys aren't elite, to your point. And then finally FSU gets on the touchdown, and really huge catch by Ja'Kai Douglas there down the sidelines. That was a really big one to really give. And we've talked about this. They've done this all year. If you look at it, when a team gets on them, they get a deficit, FSU immediately responds, and they did it again in this game, scoring here.
Yeah, huge conversion there. And so now we get the ball back here. And this play right here to Kyle Morlock, he's the tight end that they don't talk too much about. Tremendous play right there, because, again, our offense was horrible.
Yep.
And we ended up having to settle for 3. But, I mean, at this point, to have a 10-7 lead at half, given how they played, it really felt like a blessing.
Yeah, and Pitt got a big break on the play before that. They threw a ball to Darian Wilmington on the sideline. He was in. He tapped his toe in, and they didn't review it.
Ooh,
FSU would have first.
Big fella.
They would have had first and goal. They could have scored a touchdown, but they still got the points. They were able to finish, and now we're into the second half.
Got to make that tackle. That's just horrific tackling.
Saw a lot of that today.
Yeah, that was not good. That probably should have been a penalty for slinging him
Yep.
out of bounds too.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I just like you have all this space, all this green. If you want to get physical and do that, don't do that on the sideline. Big sack here.
Galen's good at
Deloach,
those. Yeah, he's great
yeah,
at those
Deloach
too.
makes huge plays. 3rd and 21. Got to get off the field, and we do because Big Fisky comes through here. He's a guy they don't talk too much about, but Fisky is just awesome.
Yeah, he's
On the
incredibly
inside.
strong. Really having Lovett and the other guys in there really frees him up at times. But yeah, their defensive line is very stout. You started to see more of controlling the line of scrimmage from FSU on the defensive side of the ball in the second half, just their push. But
Yeah.
this is another
That's
dumb.
lucky that's not a fumble.
Yeah,
Jordan
that's just
did that probably 4 or 5 times
yeah,
today. I
that's
think he
just
got sacked on 3 of them. Like the awareness has got to be better because that's a very dangerous player. Reminds me of that Boston College player. We swung it out in the flat. It just has a high degree of not working out well. Here's
yeah.
another Ja'Kai Douglas play. He was the star for
I
me on
think that
offense.
yeah, he was, and Dre Jacobs gave him a good spark later in the game. Some great catches. This good move they made. Here's Dre Jacobs right here. I think
Yeah.
they did a good job because they felt like, hey, we're not getting separation on certain routes as ESPN cuts out, so the Noel fans
Yeah.
can't watch a touchdown happen.
Yeah.
So they cut out to
Just
let you.
typical treatment, typical black duck treatment of the Florida State.
We're
You
not going
don't
to
get
let
to
you
watch the
watch the
touchdown.
touchdown. By the way, they just scored. So you gotta. But that was kind of the turning point. Both me and Rico said that when they scored that, you could kind of take a sigh of relief, like,
Look at
okay,
this catch
with
here.
that ball,
Great
man,
catch.
that's incredible ball location.
This is great for Ja'Kai. I really challenged him at the beginning of the game today because
You did,
I wanted to see something because
and
we're missing 3 of our top 4 wide receivers,
yep,
and it's like here's the opportunity. He's been hurt. It's a guy who's played a lot of football. He's been around for a while, and he's
yep,
put on some weight. And he came to play today. He really
yeah.
bailed us out offensively.
Yeah, and then Trey does what he does late in the game. You get that gap open, and he's gone. Once he sees it, he's hitting the Jets. And then after that, it was just all FSU.
Yeah, 24/7. This is pretty much what it stayed. I mean, think we could have punched one in a little later.
Yeah, they were right on
Um,
the doorstep, but they knew. I mean, once it got to 17-7, it was danger zone, and then later, it was kind of once they got 24-7, it was kind of lights out. They knew this thing's
that's
over.
that's Conrad Hussey making another play. Here's Jordan just
Nope.
being Jordan.
Yeah, that's the Destin Hill trips over a guy, hurts his foot a little bit. He's like
Yeah,
limping
you
down
can
the
tell he's
sideline.
hurting. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can tell he's hurting.
he's got a sore foot. I think he's got turf toe from what I've been told, but yeah, he's got. I mean,
Look
like
at
main
this.
thing is another one of those sacks that Rico talks about. Like you got to get rid of the ball.
Yeah,
But
it's horrible.
this is a game where I think you just saw them kept grinding and then in hitting plays when they needed to, and then
Great play, Barker.
yeah, that's the JUCO transfer, and then that's pretty much. After that, it's just pretty much just back and forth of punting and FSU getting a few picks here and there, and then FSU put it away.
Yeah, we still got Jordan out here way late in the game. I didn't like that. Jordan, I think he banged his hip up and he was kind of walking around and kind of showing out for the camera and doing this little I'm kind of hurt strut. He should be fine, but I didn't
Yeah,
like him playing this late into the game.
big
That's a
hit
great
there.
play there.
Yeah, big, yeah, big hit by 16 on the ball. The ball pops out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This
no,
game pretty much died out right about here.
yeah,
So as kind of was the theme of the day, um, a highly favored team, top 4
hmm
playoff as it stands now, team starts off really slow, and it was a terrible watch in the first half. It just felt
yeah,
like one of those weird games. And then they made a couple plays, they picked it up, and they got control, and they controlled the second half, and they were obviously the much better team. Probably could have punched one in at the end if they wanted to get some style points,
yep,
but it's a learning curve, learning experience for Florida State. I do not think the depth is there. I think if Florida State's totally healthy and they've got their ones, and they've got Keon, they've got
yep,
Johnny, and they've got Akeem, they can play with and probably beat anybody. But the
yep,
depth in the overall roster is
yep.
still under construction, still not there.
Yeah, and that's right. And like I said, going in this game, I was fine until I heard, Keon wasn't playing before the game, and that was kind of a surprise because there
Yeah.
wasn't much hoopla about it. With FSU, you can't talk about injuries. You can't report them. You can't do anything. So, but still, we usually hear if there's somebody kind of nicked up. But I think they were expecting Keon to play, and then something happened last minute where it just wasn't going to work out. So that kind of really threw everything for a loop. Not that they weren't preparing for that. I'm sure they got all the other guys ready, and they always prepare. But I think that really threw a flux in that, and kind of to Rico's point, the depth, it's not there as far as experience and being able to handle those situations and perform. Fortunately for FSU, Ja'Kai Douglas came back like a monster. If he didn't break the rock, somebody should be shot. He should, because he was really, he helped them win that game. With his big plays. And but it's kind of what we saw with FSU when they hit adversity, they respond, and it was different levels of it, but they got it done, and they move on the next week.
Yeah, Gino, what are your thoughts on what you saw from FSU today? Does it kind of give you a more of a warm and fuzzy going into next week? Because they did not look good. They did not look very intimidating today.
I mean, oh boy. Uh, okay, so okay, let's talk just FSU eccentric, and then we can kind of maybe compare and contrast the future outcomes, predictions, et cetera, et cetera. I think Mike's last comment about FSU kind of overcoming that adversity, that's kind of what I was going to say. I said that, and I even said it in the private chat I'm in with a lot of the Canes guys. Being out your top three playmakers on offense, at wide receiver, I don't think there's many teams in the country that can go in and go into any stadium anywhere and have a convincing quote unquote win. But I think you saw a lot of resiliency with the FSU team. You saw guys rally behind their leaders on the offense and on the defense. You saw a team play together despite the score margin in the first half, second half. It doesn't really matter. I think you saw a team that is bought into culture, that is bought into understanding their assignment, what they need to bring to the fight every single weekend. And I think you saw guys just get behind the leadership and the veterans of that team and figure out a way to win, because whatever they did in that second half, it clearly worked. Maybe not have been the most pretty on the scoreboard, but I definitely think that team really, really is a good characterization of a team as to what resiliency means.
Yeah, and they had a similar situation. If you watch the BC game, they kind of self-imploded. It was like an avalanche. This one, they didn't let it come an avalanche. They handled it. They responded. They kept themselves in range, got a 10-7 lead at halftime, and then the second half, they just wore them down, and then they hit big plays. So they learned from that BC experience, but there's still a long ways to go with this team. But more importantly, the team has to get healthy, and they have to get their stars back to do what they want to do weekly, every week. But I totally agree with Rico. He hit me up. This is like, he thought like this is really good for this team because a lot of these guys have not been put in this position before. Like I said, Ja'Kai Douglas's first catch was against Wake all year. Guys like Portier, they haven't been in this situation. They've been like the complimentary receiver. Guys like Morlock, he hasn't been in that situation. So you had a lot of guys in this situation they haven't been in. So it's a good thing to get that experience and kind of see how you handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's something I've expressed on my side of the park too. Is like there's only one thing in sports that coaches cannot teach, and that is just experience. So when you get these depth guys that come in and they're forced to step up into roles they're maybe not comfortable with, right? Like I'm sure Rico can attest to it. Like when you're a leader in any capacity in any organization, like you're oftentimes not prepared to fill the role that you're being asked to stand in, and the only way you really learn to do that is to step into the fire and to take one to the chin. You better get back up and send one right back out. And I think a lot of your young guys stepped into those roles and they did really well.
Yep.
Yeah, so the Noles get the win 24-7. They survived the back-to-back road trips, the trap games. I know Mike loves those terms.
I hate that word. Kill somebody.
And we'll talk about the big one that's coming up next week. And you throw the records out. It's rivalry. Yep. It's going to be the Canes coming to town. It's a big ball game. We'll talk about that a little later, but it sets it up. We'll see. We'll see if Florida State plays a little better if they get healthy. Moving on, we'll go down to Kansas State. I think they're ranked 21st.
Yeah, 22nd. Yeah.
Oh, they're 22nd. They came in at number 7, Texas. We'll skip ahead a little bit here. Texas in control, 17-7. They've got Malik running the show, and they look good here for a good stretch of this game, up 24-7 here.
They did.
And then it just kind of got freaky from there. I mean, we speed ahead here. I mean, they're up 27-7, and then all of a sudden, K-State starts getting a little bit of life.
Yeah, and then got the touchdown, and then came back later, and they get a key fumble scoop. They scooped up that got a touchdown. So it's like,
look at this play here.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Goodness gracious,
Great play.
Wow,
that's incredible footwork
right there.
It amazes me that all these schools, you think like in terms of drafting, it's like, oh, I got to look at Ole Miss, or I got to go look at LSU or Bama or Ohio State or Michigan or where. There's talent everywhere. Look at this. Look at this place. Look at this. This is insane. So much talent.
Great body control.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and this is kind of where you started worrying, like, okay, Texas, you got to finish it off, and then here comes the big blunder that really shifted the game, I think.
That is truly horrific decision making by the quarterback. Anytime you back foot something, particularly going across the field, it's always
it's a bad day, no matter who you are.
Yeah, main thing on those things is you're late. You're late on the throws.
Just looking at that again, that was just really, really bad. And then it doesn't take long for it to result in Kansas State points. Howard steps up, and there it is, boom. So now we've got a ball game here.
Yeah, that's why I talk about. It's like this stuff snowballs when you have mistakes like that. So it's so hard to grab that momentum back, and then here's another big play coming up in a minute by Texas.
Well, this one, I think I jumped the gun on you here. I think we had a fumble.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
Yep, fumble, and then it leads directly to this score here. And now
you're losing.
Well, it's tie ball game, and I guess the kicker got the kick blocked. Some nonsense happened.
Thought they took the lead there.
Now, some nonsense happened. It's a great ball right there by Howard, though. That's a nice ball. Yeah, I think the kick got blocked here.
Okay, kickers, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Kickers. And this is the part where you look for response, and Texas responded, found a way to get the points, and now you're thinking this game. You're thinking this game's over once they got that lead, and then inexplainably Texas, in the last few minutes, falls apart on defense.
Texas is going to Texas.
Ooh, what a catch.
Number 8 is just destroying Texas today.
Yeah, Brooks, that kid, he might be on some fantasy team soon. Well, 3rd and 1 here. I got to say, guys, I saw it all day. I saw it from Michigan. I saw it from Florida State. I saw it from, look at this miss right here. Huge
and that's
miss.
that's what I was talking about. You thought the game was over, and then somehow K-State gets the ball back, I think.
I don't understand on 3rd and short, 4th and short, why you're running out of the gun. I just don't get it. I mean, just line up under center. What happened to fullbacks? I just don't get it, especially when you're handing off and doing some type of zone read on short yardage. It takes too long to execute that. Somehow Kansas State gets the ball back, and, of course, they get into field goal range.
I don't need to tell you what he does.
He makes a field goal. And so now here we are, overtime. Texas takes the field goal, and Kansas State trying to –
coaching decisions right here, guys, coming up. I'm going to give you a coaching decision. This is how coaches outthink themselves coming up on this play coming up here.
You got the ball on the 6-yard line, and it ends up being 4th and goal, and then you got this monkey crap right here.
Yeah.
And then the big guy, of course, can't catch the ball.
But look at the score. Look at the score. All you have to do is kick the field goal.
Extend the game.
Tied. Yeah. Just
coaching decision. It's just, I feel like coaches are getting overly aggressive in the wrong spots.
Yep.
Right there, the way the game's going. I mean, we didn't get the chance to see what the 1st, 2nd, 3rd down play call was. they had the ball at the 6, 1st and goal. I mean, I
Yep.
don't understand what they were running, but you just get greedy there. I mean, that wasn't like that was 4th and 1 from
No.
the 1 or
Yeah.
4th and goal from the 2. I mean, you had to get like 6 yards there.
Yeah.
That's pretty gutsy.
That's brutal. It's just you got to think about the situation when you only need 3 points to extend the game. You have a much higher chance of kicking the field goal that's a chip shot than you do going for it, where a million guys are blitzing you. So coaches just got to think this stuff out.
Well, here's a ball game that didn't have to have a whole lot of troubling coaching decisions.
It was interesting the first half, though. It was close in the first half.
Wide receiver.
And then Oregon said, enough of that. It's time to hit the gas.
Look at these helmets here. These guys look like auto parts.
I've heard they have 14 different uniforms. That's a guy that worked at Oregon has told me that. 14. Another quarterback's arm getting hit and still throwing it instead of just pulling it back and taking the sack.
Here's Bo Nix, and
that's
that guy's
dart.
Fast.
That's a dart.
That boy's got some wheels.
That's a place I would like to visit, Rico. I ain't gonna lie. I would like to go to a game there.
That'd be pretty fun, especially if they're playing Colorado.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what are you doing?
They're gonna score a lot of points. Look at Big Boy.
Get you in the end zone.
Boy. You ain't never seen Big Boy on a roof. Oh, they call him down at the 1?
What?
No.
Oh my gosh. Seriously?
Oh, they stole his candy. That's terrible.
No Halloween candy for you.
Put him back in at fullback and let him get his.
Yeah.
Now they score right here. So Oregon comes out 14-3. I mean,
watch what happens this play. Watch what happens here.
And he kicks it. Oh my God! What are we even watching?
Dan Lanning's on the sideline just losing his mind right now.
Now I'm gonna be honest. I did not watch this game. I just kept track of it. I wanted to be very complimentary of Oregon, and they're still really damn good, especially offensively. But this is some monkey crap football I'm watching this first half. I mean, balls, carrying,
like I said,
kicking it. What's going on?
Like I said, it was close in the first half, and then they just wore them down, and then Cal just couldn't do anything on offense. So they eventually blew them out because they kept going series after series where they weren't scoring. But I would say this: Bo Nix is bad to the bone, and he has really resurrected his career after a really struggle at Auburn. He's really done an incredible job. Got a right fit over there at Oregon, and he's a phenomenal quarterback.
Yeah, and he's been around for a while, and he's seasoned, and he's dangerous. I'm going to say this: Washington will not beat this team again if they play them.
Yeah,
they will not beat them. They will not beat them in the Pac-12 championship game.
I agree. If it gets to that point, I agree.
Wow, this really was a good ball game. Well, that's a ball right there.
That's a dart.
Bo Nix. Bo Nix could make a late Heisman run. He could.
Yeah.
And if they run the table on the way out, I mean,
he's got the games to show it. He's got the games to show it because you got Pac-12 and then you got the remaining.
Oh, what a move! Oh, another one.
Boy's like a joystick.
Can he get a block? Can he get a block? Get a block,
dude! What he didn't even block anybody. He just sat there and stuck his hand out. That's terrible.
To spring that block that was on him. It ain't gonna matter. Look at this guy, cameraman. Can we see the ball? Jesus.
Where's the ball at?
I don't know. Where's Waldo?
It's in the end zone somewhere. This looks like another pick, but it isn't.
That's a good ball there. Good ball across the middle. Oh, we got a flag on the play. I don't know what the flag is here. This is kind of a condensed highlight, so they kind of skip through the stuff. Here's Cal running, and he's going to score.
Okay. Nice run.
Was on that play.
If you watch Pac-12 game, you're going to see a lot of points.
Yep, you are.
Yep.
You're
just going to see a lot of points. Even Utah scored a ton today.
That's what I like a lot about Bo
Nix. What a ball.
Is how he manipulates the pocket all the time. When you watch Bo, he doesn't really run all the time out of it, but he manipulates the pocket where he gets guys open. And
Tell you what, he passes the eye test, man. He looks good. Yeah. Look at that. That's some quick feet right there by that running back. That was pretty excellent.
There's a guy I'm sure that's coming up here soon who you're not going to like how he navigates the pocket.
I'm sure, but I love what Bo was. I mean,
What
okay.
is going
What?
on?
Fuck, fumbling at the one, and I'm guessing that you guys did not recover it.
Yeah, Cal, I don't know what's going on here.
It's like
All
a
right, Bo chucking it, and this
Yeah.
guy's fast. Wow. Oh man, he stepped out. Otherwise, he would have been running for a long time.
Yeah, they need to condense these things because there's so much craziness going on here.
Ferguson right there. That dude's got to be the biggest tight end in college football. Dude was like an offensive lineman.
Yep. That's
How big is he?
He's like 6'7", like 6'7", 240.
Oh, holy crap! Tackling.
Yeah, that's what happens when you're down 49-19. Your tackling
Oh.
gets sloppy.
Yeah, I see why. I see why they're down.
Hey, look! I thought the clock said like 21 minutes, but they fixed it.
Wait, they kept scoring?
Anthony
Yeah.
Thomas.
They're throwing up 56-19. Oh my goodness! Only Oregon.
Dan Lanning's going for some style points here.
Dan doesn't
He's
care
not
about
playing
the
the
score.
radio. Dan don't care. Dan don't care.
That's
So
all.
Oregon, Oregon is sitting number 6, I believe, in the playoff behind Washington.
Right.
And we'll get to Washington.
Right.
What are you guys' thoughts on Oregon?
I like them. I think they. You look at their one loss. They lost in the final second because the kicker can't make a kick. And then they competed with Washington in a tough environment at Washington. That's their only loss. Every other game, I think they've been. You're really solid. I think they beat a really good Utah team on the road. That is a hard place to play, and they got a good win. I mean, they won that game, and then they played Washington tough. So I think certainly they have a chance. But that loss, when you get a loss, it's so hard to creep back up there with teams that are unbeaten. So if they can get some teams to lose, then they could get back in it.
Well, speaking of Washington, we'll go right to this barn burner. Well, this is just a defensive clinic here.
Yeah. A non-defensive clinic.
Yep. Right off to it. It's going to be a lot of touchdowns. I think everybody's doing the dance. Here we go. Penix had a nice bounce back performance today.
He did.
He's representing Tampa well.
But then again, I think a lot of teams could have a bounce back performance against this defense.
True.
I'm sorry if any UFC people are watching, man. Your defense is really difficult.
I don't know how they regressed from last year because they had a really good offseason in the transfer portal with some pretty big names. You know, I mean, they got Bear Alexander and some other people, but like they have just regressed.
There's 4 guys. There's 4 guys there.
Dude.
Like 4.
Dude.
What are you guys doing?
Oh my gosh. That's sad.
I mean, it's just you get a touchdown, you get a touchdown, you get a touchdown. I would like to see the punt statistics for this game. There couldn't have been more than 4 punts.
All I know is if Mickey Andrews watched this tape, he might puke.
Great run right there. Washington has a physicality that I will say is impressive. They kind of remind me. Look at this. That doesn't look like that's by design.
No.
That's some backyard stuff right there.
Just make it up as you go.
I mean, this was just back and forth. USC looked like they had some control. They never really did. And then, this is
what in the world?
It's like when you're playing Madden and you can't stop one another, but you make that one mistake, you throw that pick or you fumble, and it just feels like that was the ball game.
Snowball.
I mean, not necessarily. Look at this.
This is the one
that's
where
a pick.
Did he pick it? Oh, that's their only stop of the game. There's Caleb doing some silly stuff.
Oh yeah, that's great. That's on 4th and 1 too. That's what they call.
But then,
see, that's what you do on short yardage. This is why I do like Washington. In a sense, they don't do foolishness on 4th and 1 short yardage. Get your ass under center, go get a yard. Look at this ball here.
That was a great catch.
My goodness,
it's crazy. I don't think USC would have 5 wins this year if they have anyone but Caleb Williams.
Look at this.
They're just extremely dependent. This was a big stage right here. Washington managing to get points on all their drives.
Yep.
And then, of course, 3rd and 13 here, and 52 gets loose, and Caleb, you're going down, and that was the ball game right there, really.
Yep. Because they can never stop them.
Look at this guy running. This is a good-looking back. He reminds me of Travion Henderson, honestly. His style, his size, his speed.
He's a big boy.
Yeah, he's
That's what I
running.
like right there. They always get under center when they get near, like, within the 5 yard line. They always go there. They don't do shotgun because shotgun just makes you the other team get a head start. I love the way Washington attacks inside the 10.
Yeah, so Pac-12 is really shaping up now. I mean, it's pretty much it's Washington and it's Oregon.
Yeah.
USC picks up their third loss. They're obviously out. I don't think Utah has the firepower, although they did play pretty well today.
Yeah.
This looks like they're on a crash course to have another meeting. Now, that could get derailed. Oregon State went into Colorado tonight and got a victory. They looked pretty decent. There's some teams that could throw some monkey wrenches in there, but this looks like we're going to get a hell of a Pac-12 championship in Las Vegas between a rematch of Oregon and Washington. I like the Ducks.
Yeah. I mean, these top teams are going to play again more than likely. Washington has to play at Oregon State. I think they're going to lose that game. Oregon State's a different team when they play at home. It's a weird stadium, weird looking stadium, but they play really good there. They're having a really good year. I think it's a tough gauntlet to go through, but I think eventually both of those teams are going to meet.
Well, we're going to move on into the SEC West.
Great game.
And there
Great
was a
game.
doozy. There was a doozy in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah,
Started up, Jaden going to Malik Neighbors here. You know, I don't want to. We already talked about FSU.
Yeah.
Every team that LSU has played, it looks like this, except that first game. You know, everybody else kind of is just getting highlighted on, and that didn't really happen the first week. But since that first week, those receivers have been going absolutely crazy.
What has happened is LSU giving up a lot of points. That has happened. But their offense, they got 3 avatars at receiver. They're ridiculous.
Look at this guy here. This guy here is going to be a problem. Listen, Georgia, I've said it from the beginning of the year. I don't think Georgia beats Alabama in the title game. I don't care if it's in Atlanta. I don't care if it's in Athens. And the reason I don't think that they can beat him is that guy, number 4, is going to be a problem. Because when they decided to stick with that guy, this guy's pretty good at running too. But when they decided to commit to Milroe, he's played a lot better.
And that's why Nick's the GOAT. He understands player development, what to play. Had to adjust some things the way they ran Jalen with the offense, and they've done that. And so that's why Nick's one of the best. That's why he's got more national championships than anybody in this modern era, because he knows what he's doing, just like Jaden Daniels knows what he's doing. So
that guy is quick as a hiccup.
Yeah,
Look at this dude.
And this guy is he is an elite runner. That's elite running, man. That's an elite runner.
That's called hitting the B button and saying, "See you later."
Yeah, he held the right trigger down and speed boosted there. Man, Milroe was really impressive running the ball all night. So was Jaden, though. I think Jaden had $140 running in the first half. Look at that ball.
Yeah.
Touchdown.
That was 5 seconds left in the half. That's dangerous, but man, they have so much confidence in their offense.
Well, these guys all got dances, don't they? They're still dancing.
You got to show everyone.
I guess so. You have to work on my moves. Look at that. Ooh, just baited 4. Come get it if you can, number 4. Just a rope.
Here's our guy.
Ooh, Bama's got McClellan running the ball. Is that Williams? Yeah, they've got a pair of backs that are running the ball. They've got some wide receivers that are starting to step it up. And Milroe, man, if he can run that offense clean without throwing picks and really killing that offense's drives and keeping stuff alive, his elite athleticism running the ball is going to be a problem.
Yeah, I love this Isaiah Bond guy they got at receiver at 7.
Look at that.
17.
Look at that pump fake. I mean, that's just stick your right foot in the ground and get gone. I mean, this dude is excellent athlete.
He just, when he goes, he knows when to go. And
watch this explosion. Boom. Wow. I mean,
30 couldn't even react. It happened so fast.
Is there a better running quarterback in college?
Not straight line speed like that. Like, there's nobody with his speed.
Jordan's pretty special. Jordan's definitely can do some things, but the power that Jalen Milroe runs with is pretty.
And the difference is too, Jalen, for people that haven't seen him, Jalen's a big kid, like a really big kid. Like he's not just like a small little dude like Jordan is. Like compared to Jordan, like he's like AR size. Like he's big. Like so he can go.
Yeah. Well, Bama ends up going out there and getting the win by a couple scores. They're looking pretty good. I think they have at Kentucky. They've got Chattanooga, who they're going to absolutely lambaste, and then they're at Auburn. At Auburn's always tricky. It's always a tricky game. It's a rivalry game, but I tell you what, man, it really looks like the Tide are going to be in Atlanta. One loss representing the SEC West.
Yep. What we got next?
Let's see. Let's go Bedlam. Now, this was another barn burner, and they were kind of billing this as like the last time they're going to play, and I just don't understand why that's the case because
I don't either.
I don't understand why they can't keep the rivalry going. Like I get that Oklahoma is going to the SEC, but that doesn't mean that they can't continue to play. I mean, what's the deal there?
Florida State's been playing Florida every year, so we definitely are in the same conference. So it doesn't matter if you play your rival. I don't know. Somebody's got to make it happen.
Yeah, they got to figure that because this is one of the more fun games.
It is.
I put this up there with, I put this up there with Oklahoma and Texas for sure. So
and
we'll start this.
Oklahoma State is so tough at home. They're so good at home.
I want to say Oklahoma State went out there and scored on the first possession. Let's see if we can get to it. Yep, they do.
All right.
And there it is. Boom. Oklahoma State jumps on the board early, and it didn't take Oklahoma very long to answer right back because that's just how Bedlam works. He's down the sideline, and he's not going to get caught.
Nope. That's a touchdown every day.
Seven ball game. Oklahoma State gets the ball back, and they go up 14-7 here. Good run by the quarterback. This was just kind of a back-and-forth game. Now, Oklahoma's hanging on to their playoff hopes. I know this is Gino's favorite ball club. They're hanging on to their playoff hopes here.
Oh, goodness.
And they really needed to try to win, and they really needed to try to get back to that Big 12 championship game and maybe even beat Texas again to have a real claim to try to get into the playoff, and it just ended up not happening for them here. They definitely did fight, though. Down 17-7. They stick one there.
Yep.
Getting close to halftime. Bring it to a 14-17 ball game. Then we start working our way into the third quarter. Let's see. Where's our touchdown at here? We're right here. Take a lead here. So now it's looking like, okay, maybe OU can answer back. Had a huge loss last week playing Kansas. Wild game. That was their first loss of the year. And now they're just doubling back and really kind of hanging on. This is a really rough stretch of schedule for them.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean they're playing teams that can match them athletically. You got to bring it every week, and it's really hard. It's kind of why I think Washington's going to lose probably one or two because it's such a gauntlet when you have to play that many teams in a row with that much offense.
Now we're winning time. It's deep into the fourth here. Big score. Oklahoma State takes control right here. And, it started to get real dark for Oklahoma right about this time. Tacking on a field goal here from 34 yards out. What's the kicker got? He drilled it. And I think that's going to be the end of our scoring here. No. Oklahoma comes back, gets a field goal. Oh, my goodness gracious, he caught that ball.
Yeah. And he caught it.
What a catch.
Holy moly. So we got some last-ditch effort here. Oklahoma's trying to execute short yardage. You got to get to the sticks, man. They don't. Kneel down.
That'll do it.
Is that what that looks like?
Yep, that is.
Kneel down, and we're done. And that's the last of Bedlam for a while. So, guys, are you sad to see Bedlam
Yeah, I
leave?
mean, it's a great rivalry, and I mean, it's a game you kind of look forward to. I mean, anytime two teams from the same state play, I mean, I think it's a big deal, and it's a big deal with the fans. So make it happen, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Whoever's responsible, get on the deal and get it done.
Yeah,
Yeah, seriously, figure it out.
I also agree. I mean, Oklahoma. I mean, I lived there for 3 years. It's pretty small populated wise, and Bedlam really brings a lot of the local communities together. It's good for small businesses, because it's not that far of a trek between the two schools. So that's definitely a rivalry they should definitely keep going because it really does well for the community of Oklahoma.
Well, it's going to be going away for a little while, and now we're going to go down. Gino, this is going to be some breakdown. We got to see what happened. I didn't actually see all of the game. I kind of kept track of it.
I watched the whole thing.
Yeah, it was. I mean, thank God we have. I mean, granted, he missed one. We have a really.
Kicker's really good.
He's been helping the last couple of weeks, man. Miami has shown up late in the game. The kicker has really been kind of MVP.
Yeah, this one kind of opened it up where Miami was really stuffing them early in the game. They had no explosive plays until that play, and that kind of seemed to open it up for.
I don't know what formation that was. That was really weird.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the guy lost his balance, but yeah, it's just gap control over pursuing, and guys are out of position, and then it's a race.
Yeah, 3-0 early. Wow, that is a really long delay, and he's wide open.
The guy didn't take the safety did not veer out like he's supposed to, and James Williams. So that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to NC State. That was a brilliant offensive play call.
They were expecting him to go to the middle, and he just leaked out. And James was supposed to leak out with him, but he didn't. And of course, this is just
that's a nice ball.
That's probably one of his best balls of the day. There wasn't a lot of them, but yeah, it was a struggle, and just
nice run.
I love the running backs. Mark Fletcher's phenomenal. I love Parrish. But it's just, I mean, when you see TBD, it just doesn't look like there's an engagement in there of belief in what they're doing.
That's a nice ball, too. I mean, it's a little behind him. If he hits him in stride, it might have been a touchdown. But, I mean, still a conversion there. So Miami's got something cooking here.
Yeah, I liked what they were doing the first half. They were energetic. They were on them. They had some explosive plays, and then they after this first quarter, it just went into a lull.
And then TBD started. That's too small. The jersey doesn't go all the way down.
I don't know.
What's he styling?
It's Adidas. Who knows?
All right, we got a baseball game going on here. Both defenses played pretty well. Neither offense was able to really get cooking.
Nope.
It just felt like when NC State, I mean, 2nd and 14 there. I mean, that's a tough conversion to give up, especially against a guy who's not really that adept a passer. It just felt like great play right there.
Yeah, that was a great play.
Hit. Yeah, that reminds me of that A&M hit. That was a great hit.
That was perfect.
Get the ball out.
Yeah, we ran that corner blitz a lot versus Texas A&M. Jay Davis specifically, we have him in that package for that.
Yeah, and with Miami, they have to because they're not real big in the middle, so you have to get pressure somehow. And I love what their DC does with the pressure. Unfortunately, that's what happens when you have a guy that just doesn't read the field correctly. There's a check down on the right that he didn't throw it to, and just forcing balls that aren't there.
This ball has to go to the back pylon.
Yeah, Mark Fletcher's wide open.
Yeah,
but the thing is, Mark Fletcher is wide open in the right. Like, just
I'd love to show you the game.
Great play. Wow.
Great play. That's Cam.
That's why he's known.
Cam. That's what Cam does. He's awesome. Yeah. He's gonna make a lot of money in the NFL. Like, he is. That's really good.
That's a phenomenal play right there.
Yeah,
it's a big time play here.
Locates the ball, goes and tacks it, stay in bounds. It's a good play.
3rd and 16. This doesn't feel like this is going to end well.
It ain't. It ain't.
You got to have that internal clock going off, man. 3rd and 16. They're bringing everything they got. You can't hold it.
Yeah,
you got to step up in the pocket. I think Miami, when they move on from TBD, I said earlier in the year, I think him coming back was the worst thing that could happen for Miami. And it wasn't because I expected Tyler to play as poorly as he's played. I thought he
Great
would
set.
play better. I just think it sets the program back because they can't run the type of offense that they want to run with the lack of mobility on TVD. And I feel like turning the page and starting the new chapter would have been a better approach for them.
I just think he doesn't feel comfortable with what they're doing. I think he's a pro-style quarterback that wants to run a pro-style stuff, and what Shannon wants to run is a wide open run and shoot and a guy that's mobile, and TVD obviously doesn't feel comfortable in it. You could see it. He doesn't feel the pressure. He's pressing. He locks on number 7 like 99% of the time. If you look at a lot of his routes, he's looking for Xavier every time.
Yep.
Like he just doesn't feel comfortable with what he's seeing, and I think seeing the field is just not open anymore, and it hasn't been. Even that play gets tackled by a toenail. I mean,
Yeah, that was,
he just doesn't seem like he has a feel for everything.
no. And I think Georgia Tech kind of wrote the script for the last couple teams, the last couple weeks, because
Yep.
Georgia Tech played a lot of, they were dropping, 7 or 8 back in coverage almost every play and forcing
Yep.
Tyler to make reads in the zone. And everyone that knows Tyler since he's got here is he's been a 1 or 2 look guy, and
Yep.
he doesn't have the, I don't want to say intelligence, but he doesn't have the patience to go through an actual progression like he's supposed to. So if they're
Yep.
playing soft zone and forcing him to read between the zones and figure out where the actual
That's the play that ended it right there. Like
Oof.
once he did that, it was done deal.
that was a dumb move.
Like I was just like, you can't have that play.
Yeah.
By the way, I think Brennan Armstrong's a terrible quarterback, but that's another story altogether. And then there's this play where James Williams decides he's
Wow,
not even going to tackle the guy.
Yeah, that's why you wrap up, James.
Yeah. So
yeah, you can't.
everyone
You can't
wanted
play
to.
bumper cars.
The thing is, everyone wanted to move James to linebacker and mix him in with linebacker and safety. Well, that's why you can't play linebacker because they're supposed to explode through them, and you're just tapping with your head. So I
I
mean,
just don't. I don't understand though. I don't understand in that situation. Make the tackle. You
yep,
still have time. If you hold them to a field goal there, you still have
yep.
a chance to come down and win the game. I don't understand that.
Yeah, and the play we didn't see is the 4th-and-1 play, and that I thought was the game changer because yeah,
It's a nice return.
it's 10-6. If you kick a field goal, it's 10-9. You put the pressure on NC State to do something on offense because then all you need is another kick. You've got a really
Yeah.
good kicker in Xavier. You can win the game,
There's
and
Tyler being Tyler.
they just killed themselves by going for it. And it's like coaches
Yeah.
out thinking themselves. Rico, again, take the points, keep
Yeah.
yourself where you're putting the pressure on the other team, and they took that away.
Yeah. The ball just didn't have enough zip on it there, and
Yep.
ends up finding the safety's hands. Miami bows up here. They don't give up the touchdown.
Their defense played well. It's just they
Yeah.
had a few plays that were just explosive that really just killed them with James and a
Yeah.
couple plays. But their defense was really good. A lot of tackles for loss, had a few sacks, and they did enough to win. They're just, I mean,
Our
their
defense
offense.
played well, really, really well all year.
Yep,
I mean,
yep. I
last
love.
3 weeks, offense hasn't done anything to really warrant any praise, and defense has kept us in every single game the last couple of weeks. So
Yeah, I love what they're doing with the pressure because it's like it makes sense. It's like you don't have guys in the middle that can have the girth to handle stuff, and then so you bring pressure on
What
the
is
edges.
that?
yeah,
What is that?
I would love to know the answer to that.
That's
Well,
called
but I don't. I don't get
let's
that.
go
Like
home.
that's such a terrible throw. Like this
Yeah.
guy 2 years ago
Yeah,
was simply better than that. Game got ugly there. We don't need to see this mess. It's a bunch of pushing and shoving and
yeah.
stuff you don't want to see. Hopefully, they don't have any suspensions or anything like that going on, so they can come into the rivalry game next week clean.
Yep.
Tyler Van Dyke is holding this program back. I said before, I thought Miami was a top 15 team. I thought they had talent. I thought Mario has turned around and flipped the roster and made them competitive. I really love their offensive tackles, the big boys, Sampson and I forget the other guy's name. They've got some really nice players. Wesley as a linebacker. They've got obviously Kinchins is an All-American.
Yes.
But TBD is so up and down and mostly down. He's really killing this program.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like he's affecting not just the offense, but really good playmakers like Kobe, like Jacoby George. These guys can't get the ball. And I think Mark Fletcher, same thing. You could mix stuff up better. And I think it's not totally on everything on him. The calls, some of these calls they're doing are just bad calls. So they got to put him in better positions. But it just, I mean, it makes sense to me. Although Maury said after the game, which is crazy, that that's his guy, he's sticking with him, and I get it. But dude, it's like you got to know the pulse of your program, and what's working, and you can't just stick with this stuff. And because eventually these guys are going to stop playing. For this guy, when they see that it just ain't working, it's going to get people are going to get frustrated. We saw some of that frustration, late in the game where emotions got into because they really know they needed this game. So yeah, Mario might have to make some difficult decision. Mario's saying that TBD is this guy and he's not changing, but man, I mean, that's clearly a massive area that's holding this team back because the defense is doing enough to give them a chance to win.
Well, we've covered the top 10. We've covered the Canes. There's going to be a big ball game in Tallahassee next week. Those are dangerous games. I mean, Miami can kind of turn the season around. If they were to come in there and upset the Noles, that would obviously be a huge win for the program. And it'd be a huge win for Cristobal. That would derail a season for Florida State. Florida State will not get into the playoff with a loss. They have to be undefeated.
Right.
So a lot on the line. I think the Noles will be a lot more healthy than they were this week. Mm-hmm. So we'll see it. It's one of those games where you kind of throw the records out. Obviously, the records matter, but for that 60 minutes, it's a lot of those kids that are familiar with each other. They went to the same schools. And for whatever reason, those games, for the most part, have always kind of been close. I think Florida State had obviously a huge blowout last year, and the Canes a couple years ago had a huge blowout on the Noles. Outside of those two blowouts, the games, even when Willie was there and Miami was better, the games were contested. Even when Jimbo was at FSU, for the most part, those games are pretty closely contested. I think there was one blowout in Miami, and then I think the 31-13, but that's the championship year. I mean, these games are always closer than what you think they'll be.
Right.
So it'd be interesting to see if that holds true again next week.
They will, and there's questions on both sides. Like, one, the health of FSU, if they can get their guys back. If they do, then certainly they're going to be very formidable. And then if bottom line, it's rivalry, but man, if Miami does not do something with this quarterback situation, it's going to get ugly because FSU is going to be the best team that they played. Their front line is incredible. Their DBs are aggressive. So he makes mistakes, it could get ugly. So they're going to have to figure some ways to, if you're going to stick with TVD, you got to put him in better situations to where he's not killing you, where he's with these picks and turnovers, because they can't have turnovers in FSU. They got to be healthy. But yeah, like your point, Rico, it comes down to execution. It's always high intensity. It's going to be electric. Obviously, I'm going to be there because I'll be working. But it's going to be a lot of hypeness and a lot of electricity. And I don't know the time of the game. Probably I'd say 3:30 or 7:30. I'm guessing from what I hear. But yeah, it's always fun. It's always a great rivalry, and but those kind of things are things I'm looking at going into the week.
Well, now this comes a part of the show where we start talking about our playoff rankings and our Heisman, and going down the list. I've kind of just jotted this down. I'm going to shift it a little bit. I'm going to have Georgia back in the one spot. I think the Missouri team is very good. I think Georgia has shown that they have been able to step up when they needed to. They've played not a terrible schedule. That's been decent. It hasn't been really a lot of pitfalls there. They don't have to travel outside the state of Georgia, but they're pretty consistent. I thought the Florida win was impressive. Florida's not awful. They're not that great, but they're not awful, and they dominated them. They beat a good Missouri team today. I think Beck's playing a lot better. They're doing this without Brock Bowers. Everybody's kind of waiting for him to lose, and it's like you're waiting, but it doesn't happen. So I think Georgia being a back-to-back champ, I'm going to have them on my one spot. I still have Michigan in the two, although I'm a little disenchanted. That wasn't a very impressive performance today, and I'm really weary if this, the sign gate and all this stuff with Harbaugh is going to kind of derail the momentum they had. A couple of weeks ago, they looked like the best team in the country. They come out of the bye, all the stuff drops. I mean, after the 49-0 at Michigan State, they look like best team in the country. Bye week happens, and then this game, and it's kind of like, Penn State rolled. We didn't show them, but they rolled like 55-14 over Maryland, and Michigan's going to Penn State next week. Possible suspensions, all this stuff. So I've got Michigan at 2. It was close. We'll see. The big test is going to be next week. I've got FSU at 3, and I'll have Ohio at 4, followed by Washington. And Washington, Oregon, and Bama are all super close. I know Washington's got the clean record, but if I had a team out of those 3, I would probably go Bama. So those are my playoff teams. And Heisman race, I'll throw Mike Penix back up there because I want to see the plastic taken off Jordan Travis. I mean, he had some stats, but it just feels like Norvell is kind of coaching him so that he doesn't get hurt. And so it's like I'm waiting for that loud, boisterous Heisman performance. And maybe we get that coming up here next week or in the next couple of weeks. I haven't seen it yet. So I'm going to have Penix up there. I thought Penix was brilliant today. And then, Mike, I'm going to go with your guy at number 2, Marvin Harrison. Every week, Marvin Harrison looks amazing, and he's making crazy plays. Then I'll go Jordan Travis, followed up by JJ, and my 5th will be Bo Nix. So that's what I've got for my playoffs and my Heisman guys. So I don't know if is Mike having technical difficulty here? He may be having it. Gino, you can go with your playoff top 5.
Yeah, I think ours are pretty co-aligned. I think Georgia had a really, really convincing win over a surprisingly really good Missouri team. So I think they're going to take the top spot, regardless of Michigan, playing maybe not the best game they played all year. I think Michigan's a solidified 1 and 2. Like I think it's flip a coin each week between Georgia and Michigan to figure out who can take what spot. But I got them at number 2. 3, I have Ohio State, and then 4 FSU. But then again, those guys at 5 and 6 are knocking at the door right there with Oregon and Washington. And then I would say for Heisman, I think it's Michael Penix's award to lose, so to speak. There's a lot of other big playmakers out there that are doing a really, really well job. They're padding a lot of stats. They're checking a lot of the boxes. Jordan Travis is definitely up there. I mean, he's in that top 4 conversation. I don't often disagree with Mike, but I'm kind of disagreeing with the Marvin Harrison Heisman campaign. I mean, I don't think I don't know. I don't think he's getting the volume and the stats he needs. It's kind of like a Devontae Smith from a couple years ago to really even be in that conversation, because he's not really single-handedly taking over a game each week, there at Ohio State. So, but I mean, I have Michael Penix number 1. My number 2 is Bo Nix. 3, I would probably say Jordan Travis. And then from the others, it's kind of just a toss-up between the rest.
Okay, that's fair. Let's see. We got Michael Langston back in here. Mike, we lost you for a second. We ran through our top playoff teams and our Heisman, and you came in just in time. What are your playoff teams, and what are your top Heisman picks?
Okay. My number 1, I'm still with you, Chris Ballas. Don't worry. Number 1 is Michigan for me. That's the most complete team. I don't care what they're going through. Could that change? Yeah, later. But I see a complete team when I watch that team. It's close 2 with Georgia. I have 3 Florida State, and then 4 I would say Ohio State, and then 5 I'd probably go with Washington because they're the team that's undefeated right now. So I'd have to go with them. But that will be my kind of top 5. I just feel like those 5 teams have kind of really stuck out to me from the whole process. Heisman, I would go with Tampa Bay Tech's own Michael Penix. I love that kid. I know him personally really well. I just love the way he's playing. I think others have kind of slipped up. I think Jordan does have some gains where he can, if they break the plastic, he can really maybe create some electricity. I think also JJ would be in there at 3. I think JJ still can do it, but very poor game from JJ this week. But like I said, JJ has some moments. Ohio State, Penn State coming up. He performs high. He's going to be mentioned up there with those guys because they're going to be more than likely undefeated if they win. So I think those three guys for me. I can't think of 2 more guys, so I'm just going to go maybe Marvin Harrison. But I really I like Penix right now, kind of where he sits right now, and most of the Heisman voting I've seen has him, at that top spot.
Now, I guess that we can do something here now that the playoff rankings are out. If you had to predict how the 4 will settle, how would you what 4 would you pick?
This week, like
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking into the crystal ball, looking into the future, how do you see this shaping up?
Oh, I mean, I think that's almost impossible to do because there's so many games. Because Georgia plays Ole Miss, Michigan. I feel the most confident with Michigan because I feel what the team they have. I think great Penn State, you beat Maryland, but I think Michigan is a much better team than them, so I think they'll be okay. And then they have Ohio State at home later in the year. So I feel the best about Michigan. I feel the second best about FSU because I think their schedule is very sets up well for them. And then with Georgia, I think there's going to be a lot of challenges because you're going to have to beat Alabama. You're going to have to beat Ole Miss next week. They lose
Yeah.
2 games, they're out. They lose 1,
Yeah.
they could still get in it. So I think there's a lot to be determined, but I feel the best probably about Michigan.
Okay. I'm Gino, what do you think? If you had to predict 4 for the playoff, what are you thinking right now?
Oh, you guys are probably going to hate me when I say this. I think if you go off of, like, if the rankings ended today and you had to pick 4,
No, I'm saying, like, when you look at the season, you look at the
Yeah.
upcoming games, who
When
do you
they
think is going to be
when they
there at the
finish
end?
up. Yeah, when they finish up.
that's tough.
It's hard. That's why I said there's so much games going on.
You ever heard of the analogy called whataboutism? Like, what about this? What about that? That's tough. I think Georgia will be there, even if they get a loss to Alabama at the end. I think Georgia will be there. I don't hope. I want Michigan to be there because I agree with Mike. I think they're the most complete team in college football right now. And then really, I mean, Florida State. I mean, they just have to win out and they're in. And I don't know what the remainder of your schedule looks like outside of Miami.
Florida. That's about
Florida.
it.
Okay.
And then the SEC title game.
In Louisville.
It's looking like Louisville in the title game. So I mean,
right.
It's definitely very favorable for you guys to continue to run the show and win out. So that kind of seems likely, like it's going to happen. I think it's just, and then it's just that 4th spot. Like can an Ohio State get in with a Michigan loss? You know what I mean? Like how does that work if Michigan beats them in the regular season and then they play again? Or like I don't know how that whole thing is going to pan out. But if I were to pick 4 today, it's Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say Washington.
Hey, all right. Yeah, I think it's just really tough because it's each week the pressure is going to ramp up for all these games.
Yeah.
Michigan could lose next weekend. And then we're talking about a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Or Georgia and Michigan could lose. Next week. It's just every week is just a different thing where it's really unique. Of you just have to go with who you feel the most comfortable with of how they're playing.
Yeah. I think at the end of the road, I think it's going to be a really, really rocky situation. Michigan's brass and Santa Ono is very, very dug in, and they're going to really fight this. If they try to suspend Jim Harbaugh, they're going to file an injunction that will give them a certain window of time where he could still coach.
Right.
I think Michigan finds a way to get through this. I think next week may be like an overtime, tough, figure it out game. I think they'll pace Maryland. And I do think they will kick Ohio State's ass at home. And the Big Ten West is awful. They'll probably play Iowa, and they will kick Iowa's ass. So I think Michigan will finish as the 1. I do think FSU will run the table for what's remaining there. I think the game next week will be tough. I think Florida will be tough. I think Louisville will be pretty tough. But this team doesn't have major injuries right now, and I think they're just better than the teams that they're going to play. I think they'll be there at number 2. Number 3, I'm going to say Bama. I think Bama's going to come out of the SEC. I think Texas picks up another loss along the way, and they're going to get canceled out, and that's going to kill the Big 12. And then I think that the committee makes a tough decision, and they take Oregon over a one-loss Ohio State as the Pac-12 champ, because the Pac-12 has gotten too much notoriety, and Oregon will avenge their lone loss to Washington.
Yep.
They're a very sexy team. They're a team that everybody kind of wants to see. And I think you'll get FSU, Bama, and then Michigan, Oregon in the playoff.
Yeah, it's a little bit different this year for Ohio State. I know they got in last year, but it's a little different because there's undefeated teams. So it's like you're going to have a hard time slipping in there if those teams take care of business and just slide your way in. And Oregon's got a lot of good wins. If Oregon beats, Washington, comes back, beats that, and they got all these games they played, Ohio State's not going to be able to match that schedule, what they have.
Exactly. And I think Oregon will have to your point, at the end of the year, in the last couple of weeks, Oregon will have to beat a highly ranked Oregon State team, probably be top 15.
Yep.
And then Oregon will have to turn around and beat, if Washington loses, they're going to be in the top 4 or 5. And they're going to be the top 5 Washington team. And Ohio State's going to be hanging on to, well, we lost to the number 1 team. Yeah, but you lost. Like, Oregon is going to have beaten 2 top 15 teams, 1 top 5 team, and Ohio State's going to be trying to cling on to, well, we lost in a close game. That's not going to be enough, I think, Oregon to get in over them.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is how bad, say Michigan wins, how bad that game is going to be. Is it going to be like the last 2 years ago? If it is, then they're done.
You would think.
So
but they might wave their magic wand or hire some private investigation firms and dig up some more dirt.
Wait, you got to play them again. Play it again.
Yeah. They used illegal cleats. Well, guys, this has been fun. This has been a long one. Gino, It's been a pleasure having you on.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Next week should be fun. We've got Florida State, Miami. Hopefully the Noles win, but you never know. It's a rivalry game. We'll have to see, and we'll see what else happens. Michigan, Penn State, huge game. Man, it's just going to be a crazy week to see what happens with this whole investigation. And we got some big games coming up. So we're getting into the teeth of it now. I mean, it's getting way into the nitty-gritty. So it's been fun, guys. We're going to be signing off. This is Mike and Rico, college football recap with Gino as a special guest here. So we're signing off.
Love it.
God bless, go Noles, and have a great week.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yes, sir.